Today we're going to be working on the newest project truck in the shop, which I wish I could call my own, but unfortunately, well, this truck is way too nice and shiny for anything that I personally would ever own, but maybe someday we'll have something that looks as nice as this. But check it out, guys. It's a 99 or 2000, maybe 2001, single cab, short box, step side two-wheel drive, Silverado, of course, and underneath the hood, he's got a cammed 6-liter and a bunch of other goodies, and this truck looks clean. Our focus today is to redo the whole suspension, basically front to back. We're adding double adjustable shocks, we're adding Caltrax, we're adding a bunch of Atomic Fabrication goodies to this thing. But I'm gonna start up front. I'll show you what we're gonna be doing. And we're not gonna be changing the ride height because it already sits at the perfect stance, but it's just getting an overall refresh. So we have some new factory lower control arms. Talk about that in a second. We have some inner and outer tie rods. We have some sway bar end links here. We've got a backing plate for the disc brakes, new locking alignment tabs up top. We are going to be putting a drop spindle on, but because of the height of the shock and spring package, it's not going to change the overall stance, or it shouldn't, based on calculations and whatnot. And the stuff that Richard from Atomic Fab and Performance, I think is what he's now called, provided is the shock package, both front and rear, and this is how we're going to get the new Viking shocks up front. It's sort of kind of a coilover, I guess I would say. So it uses the Viking double adjustable, compression and rebound, and then it has the coil spring, but instead of like just a straight 2.5-inch coil, it flares out up top. So it'll use the stock upper coil bucket, which is, well, kind of just like that. So it's going to mount the spring up there the same way it does now. And then down on the bottom, it's going to mount to the control arm with a bracket that Richard builds, which is this guy right here. So it just kind of slips in the pocket, like super beefy, super thick. Just kind of slips in there, mounts on the two holes, and there's plenty of surface area to hold up the weight of the truck. So I think maybe I'll have to see if I can convince Richard to send me another set for the ugly truck, because I would love to get some double adjustables up front to go with the Vikings that we have in the back, because eventually I'll get back to the track and do some more racing. I know I promised you guys I was going to work on the ugly truck soon and get the cam swapped out. And I've got all the Holley EFI stuff that I need to install on it and like a million other things. But hey, we're running a shop. We got customer projects to work on. And I figure at least if I'm going to get some other work done, it might as well be on a really cool looking Silverado. So let's get to it. Normally I would say this is a bad idea, but it appears that these coils have been cut, so less danger. And those have been chopped. All right, so the teardown is about as complete as you can get. There is literally nothing left on the front of this steering or suspension system. I guess the sway bar is still in, so if you want to count that, but we have the inner tie rods, outer tie rods, upper lower control arm, spring shocks, pretty much the whole 9 yards is torn down, sitting in a pile here on the floor. The only thing we're going to reuse is the wheel bearings, because those are actually pretty new. He had those installed not too long ago. And then over here on the table, of course, we have all the new parts which are about to go on. So that's kind of where we're at on the truck. We're going to start the install. As far as activities in the rest of the shop goes, we're fairly busy right now. Nick is working on finishing up wiring under the hood of the Lincoln Continental. We've got Dustin over here. He's sitting under the hood of an OBS Suburban, doing some AC work. We got a compressor that's going in. It is Thursday, which is a slow day for us, which is awesome because this week, Monday through Wednesday, we have been completely slammed. We haven't had a chance. Well, we've been just slammed. We haven't had a whole lot of fun or downtime. So that's where we're at. Ugly truck moved down one bay. So I wish I had more time to drive that thing and have some fun with it, but such is life. No complaints. Let's get back to work. Let's get the front end put together on pretty much the cleanest Silverado that I've seen in quite some time. All right, so this is kind of going to be a little bit of a puzzle to get everything in here all at once. We'll start by just getting these bolts started. Start by getting them started, go figure. Normally I wouldn't love having to notch this control arm like I'm going to do, but because there's really no structure up here anymore because the coil spring is not going to be there, it's okay. It'll make servicing this a lot easier. All right, so my final fix, a little bit of a notch there, and I shortened the tip of the bolt just a little bit. Now we can kind of slip that in, which is gonna make servicing this thing so much simpler because there's nothing I can stand less, nothing I can't stand more, however that works, than a vehicle that you can't service. So, fixed. So, now we need to paint. Oh no! Quick, I need somebody's help. Can you pick that up for me? Thank you. Nick, we need these for our trucks.
I want to see it.
Here it is.
Yes. That needs to happen. Need those on my truck. Wow. I like it.
No welding, no cutting, just
Very bolted.
bolt it on and go.
I like that.
All right, so whoever put these caliper bracket bolts in last time, they, needless to say, they believed in Loctite and a lot of it. They were painting it out. But to get that off, I'll reapply a little bit, but to get that off, let me show you my like 5th or 6th favorite tool that I got with the shop. A bench grinder with a wire wheel. Didn't plug it in. There we go. And this one says heavy duty, so you know it's good. So much better. Remember, kids, always wear your eyeglasses. Eyeglasses? I meant safety glasses. You know what I meant. All right, one more issue. Right there. We need to clearance back just a touch because it actually hits on the new drop spindle. So I forgot to push the button, so you just have to use your imagination to see what it looks like to install that. But grinding that little bit on the back gave us plenty of clearance. So now the caliper will go on. And this side is, other than alignment, it's pretty much done. All right, Nick has all the fancy tools. He's got a official caliper pusher backer. I think that's what they call it. That is fancy. I like it. Definitely beats using a C-clamp. So it's Friday afternoon and just about everybody has gone home. We had quite a few jobs this week. Thankfully, so I'm really glad that the shop has kind of picked up and we're pretty dang busy. We have 3 guys working here right now. Nick, who you've met, Dustin, who I think you probably might have met, and we also have Thomas, who's up front as the service manager. But anyhow, we've got all the projects done for the week complete for the shop stuff, and I have the front of the Silverado put pretty much 100% back together. And I got to admit, it is really refreshing to have a suspension kit that more or less bolts on, because I remember when I was doing the ugly truck chassis, or well, whatever you want to call that, the name to be pending. I remember when I was building this suspension stuff over the winter, I bought some parts and I ended up having to redo pretty much everything. I built my own custom upper shock towers. Can't talk today. Did a whole bunch of fabrication and welding, and now I got this front end put together in basically a day. You can easily do this in a day if you have just time to go right to town. So we have new lower control arms, so the bushings will be nice and tight. We got the drop spindles. We have the Atomic Fab. I guess you'd call it a coilover conversion. We got the shocks in there. He uses the Viking double adjustables. So I guess the $1 million question is, what are you going to benefit by doing a conversion like this? Well, number one, you're going to get a better ride quality. Number two, you're going to get better handling. You're going to get more adjustability with the shock. So let's say you want to tune the suspension for drag racing. You can set the rebound and compression to do whatever you want to do for drag racing or autocrossing or whatever the case may be, just daily driving comfort. You can adjust the shocks. And of course, the Vikings are a much, much better shock or dampener than what we had in here before. Right now, the coils supplied with the kit are 750 pounds per inch. And depending on what your application is, the weight of the truck, usually you can buy many different rates of springs, I should say. And if you have a question on yours, just hit up Richard from Atomic. He can get you squared away with exactly what you need. In terms of final ride height for this truck, the customer did not want to change it. I took a bunch of measurements before, so now we're going to put the wheels on the thing, drop it on the ground, and see where we're at. But with the drop spindles and the springs in there, that all should have been accounted for. So hopefully the ride height does not change. There will be a little bit of adjustment on the adjuster, go figure, on the bottom of the shock body. But of course, whenever you're doing aftermarket suspension, you always want to make sure that the shock is somewhere near the middle of its travel at ride height. So we'll throw the wheels on, get it on the ground, and see what it looks like. Oh, and then I'm going to tell you all about the rear suspension because we got some cool stuff in store for that as well. Got the aluminum centering ring so the wheels stay nice and centered, as long as that'll stay. Think you would notice if we swapped? That lower ball joint stud does stick down a little ways, but there's nothing in the way. The wheel weights are a mile away from it, so nothing is going to interfere. So before, the front was right at 29, and we are at 27 now. I just put the coil like bottomed all the way out on the adjuster, so we do have some room to go up, and the shock looks like it's in a decent spot. So crank the adjusters up, try it again. All right, so the coilover started all the way to the very bottom. By the way, that zip tie has not been trimmed yet, but I'll do that after we do the alignment, just because that stuff bugs me, you guys probably know. Anyway, that's all the way down where we started. That's the truck like way too low. And then I just raised the adjuster by about that much. So I'll match that side and then we'll put the truck on the ground. Try again. Much better. So this side needs to come down just a touch. That side needs to go up just a touch. We are exactly where we were before. Actually, I lied. Before, the left front was 28 3/4. So technically speaking, we're exactly where we were. But I will level it out just a bit. All right, so after messing with the coilovers a little bit, we got them adjusted. The shocks are in the center of their travel, and we have the ride height pretty much where it needs to be. It does need to be, fine-tuned by about 1/8 of an inch on one side, 3/8 on the other. But for all intents and purposes, we are basically where the ride height was before. So I am happy. And then after talking with Richard, I realized there was a part that I forgot to install, which I'll take this back apart on Monday and do it. He's got these little bushings, I guess, that help center the shock in the upper frame mount. So I'll do that. Not a big deal. The shock's going to be adjusted anyway. And then next week, and in the next video you guys see, I'm going to start the rear suspension on this thing. It's going to be similar sort of to the suspension that I have on the drag truck chassis here. We're not doing all this crazy, you know, sliders in the rear mount tank and all that, but I am going to be using Richard's rear upper shock mounts and his lower shock mounts. And then of course we're going to be doing Caltrax. This truck is going to be, call it like a sport truck slash street truck slash sometimes drag truck, I think. And then I know the owner told me eventually he might be doing a turbo and stuff like that. So we want to be able to harness the power, stop any axle wrap, and increase traction. That's one thing Caltrax are great for. I run them on all my trucks. So Caltrax, we've got the flip kit mount, we've got the Caltrax itself. That's the rest of Richard's brackets that we're going to be welding onto the frame. And then of course some more Viking double adjustable shocks. So that project I will start on Monday, of course, after I fix the part I forgot. And now the other good thing about doing this here in the shop is now I finally have my own alignment setup. So once we get the install all the way done, we'll simply put it up on the rack and we'll get it aligned, rather than normally when you do this on your own in the garage, you got to take it somewhere to get it aligned. But here we are. We have a shop to do that. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. That brings this video to an end. I promise. Yes, no, I promise. This is going to be for real. As soon as I get that truck done, the very next thing that we're doing is the ugly truck. The motor's coming out. We're going to do a cam swap. We're going to seal up a couple of leaks. I'm going to kind of paint it and make the engine bay, you know, a little bit tidier. And we're going racing because Bandimere has 1 year left and I want to get back to the track a couple of times this summer. So we'll put the cam in, the valve train, possibly a bigger turbo this summer. I also want to get my Holley EFI installed. I've had that stuff forever and I really need to get that on. So that's what's going on at the shop. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Come back soon and have a good one.